Hello. So I ran Pathfinder Second Edition for the first time yesterday. I've never ran Pathfinder First Edition, so can't really speak to that. But I have ran D&D as a DM for just over 10 years, and I've played D&D for just over 20. So I just wanted to talk about how the first session went, some problems that I ran into, how I felt the system is designed compared to what I'm used to. Really, just as much for my benefit as for yours. I just want to get my thoughts out into like a viewable manner. Um, so my players wanted to do the abomination vaults. That's good for me because I wanted to run a module to make sure that I'm able to focus on learning the rules as opposed to like coming up with story and NPCs stuff like that. But we're doing the beginner's box first because it has this nice little tutorial adventure included, which slowly teaches you how the game works, which looked like a good idea. So we spent the first session 3 hours in the first room in the basement of the Atari fishery fighting giant rats. I don't think it's supposed to take you 3 hours, but we are learning the system. Everybody's learning their characters. It's expected it'll take a little longer. I will admit my players were a little excitable and a little disruptive, but it's a new campaign, it's a new system, everyone's excited. I kind of let it slide, although I did give them a bit of a slap on the wrist at the end. Just kind of, reiterating that we're all having a good time, but like let's try and choose our moments for a bit of disruptive jokery, which people seem to appreciate. So the first thing we ran into, the first problem, was I told them to choose an exploration activity as soon as I read the intro manual and put them down into the basement. That took about 10 minutes because everyone obviously had to look through the rules and figure out what they wanted to do, what their options were for exploration actions. And once they had chosen, we ended up with two people investigating, two people scouting, and one person defending. They then immediately triggered the rat encounter by heading to the hole in the wall. So, like 2 seconds after this long choice, they triggered the fight, and then we had another long session of googling because the scouting exploration activity means that you get a +1, but the entire group gets a +1 to initiative, and two people had taken scouting. So the question obviously came up: is that doubled? Does it stack? Do they both get to add their +1, making everybody get a +2? I didn't know the answer to this, so I googled it, and nobody has ever talked about it. There is no Google results for does scouting stack. So I tried searching does downtime activity stack? Can multiple people take the same action? Again, didn't really get any results, but I figured because the defend action is like a personal thing, surely multiple people can take it. We ended up taking like 15 minutes trying to figure this out before one of the players mentioned like, hey, this counts as a circumstantial bonus. What does that mean? So I googled circumstantial bonus, and within like the first line it says they cannot stack if they're from the same source. So the answer is that you can't stack scouting because it's a circumstantial bonus. And I'm not really sure how to like fix the issue that we didn't know where to find it. But it's just kind of made me aware that with Pathfinder Second Edition, it seems like there are some rules where you need to know a different rule to make sense of another rule. In this case, because I didn't fully understand how circumstantial bonuses worked, I couldn't make the correct call or like have the right understanding of how scouting worked. Like I said, there's not really any way you can fix that. It's just something that I'll need to understand and be aware of in the future. If something mentions another rule, I'm going to have to almost backwards work my way through each rule until I get to like the start and then be like, oh, okay, this one determines how this one works and this one determines how this one works, as an example. But yeah, then once we'd figured that out, we did start initiative. The first round did take like an hour and 20 minutes. We have 5 players, So 5 rats, 10 creatures in the encounter overall. So it's not going to be quick. And everybody's learning their characters. People are learning what they can do. People are trying to understand the 3 action system as opposed to 5th edition's movement, main action, bonus action. It's not really that hard to understand. I think it's quite a nice, clear system. It works pretty well. It allows for a bit more creative thinking on your turn. For example, you don't have to worry about like, oh, I'm not a rogue, so I can't bonus action dash, for example. Like if you want to move twice and still have an action, you can do that, which is super nice because it means people can come up with really cool strategies. But it did still take the full 3 hours to kill the 5 rats, which was a little slower than I would have liked. I'm aware the beginner's box almost treats this first rat encounter as like, everybody just strike. Use your weapon, you strike them, the rats strike you, just get through it. But my players wanted to try their cool stuff on their characters, and I didn't really want to stop them. So I think that's why it took a little bit longer than it was supposed to. In their defense, they rolled very badly, and the rats rolled very well. I was using Foundry, so I wasn't like fudging rolls or anything, but the rats were regularly getting like 22s, 24s to hit, and the players were getting like 10. Even with the like multi-attack penalty, they couldn't land those first hits. And because 5th edition uses smaller numbers than Pathfinder, the players were seeing like a +7 on the rats attack and being like, what the fuck, that's really high. I had to kind of explain that it's not that high. It's just everything's a bigger number in Pathfinder, which they kind of accepted. The amount of actions that they can take was a little daunting to some of them, I think, and a little confusing. Especially things like step versus stride. The gunslinger was in a corner, in the corner of a room, and one of the rats got within 5 feet of them. So they assumed, because 5th edition, everything can opportunity attack, they assumed that they would need to step instead of stride, which, because they were in a corner, then didn't actually take them 5 feet away. They were still within 5 feet. But then they were trying to figure out, like, do I have a penalty if I make a firearm attack in melee? Which, again, wasn't the clearest thing in the world. The way we've kind of figured it out is that they have, like, a minus to attacking the creature that's within 5 feet of them if they're trying to do the ranged attack. But other than that, I can't remember us finding any actual... Like, it's not like disadvantage like in 5th edition. But they ended up retconning and striding because I had to explain that not every creature gets to opportunity attack. That is something specifically, fighters and some specific creatures get. So they end up striding and then taking some shots with their firearm, which then we had the issue of like, how does reloading work? So it has reload 1 written next to it, which at first they assumed meant they fire 1 bullet, then they have to reload. But we then realized that means it takes 1 interaction to reload the gun. So then we had the question of like, when do they reload? Is it 1 shot then reload, or is it... There's no like description of how much ammo the gun can like hold. A bit more Googling, we figured out that it is just take a shot and then reload every time, which I could tell kind of frustrated the player. But I assume that will almost figure itself out in the future as they become like more accurate, or they take feats that let them do it quicker, get a new gun that can fire more times, whatever. That, not a huge concern, but just something that was a little something of note, I suppose. They took a while to kill these rats. It took the full 3 hours, as I said, to kill the the 5 rats that attacked them. Everybody trying out their new things. Some of them trying like grapples or feints. I don't think either of which worked. Mechanically it works, but the players didn't succeed at those things. So yeah. We also had an issue of like, can you end your turn or move through allies?
especially with the current, like with the 3 actions. Although it was a summoner that did it, it's like 4 actions. Can they like move into a player's space, attack, and then move out? Which in theory, yes, they can. But with the way the actions work, they almost were a little disappointed that they can't split their movement because they had to use one action to stride 5 feet into an ally's space, one action to strike, and then one action to walk again. Um, which I could tell was a little frustrating to them because they're basically having to give up an entire action but not using the full action. Um, However, I guess I kind of explained that's just going to be how, like, something they have to consider when like tactically thinking about this game. But yeah, overall, I think the players enjoyed it. I mean, they really seem to be enjoying themselves, even like the moments where we were just sat around googling rules. Um, I could tell that everyone was like excited and interested and trying to think up new ways of using their new stuff, which I'm happy about. I just wish it hadn't taken the full 3 hours, but as I said, it was a mix of them being a little excitable and disruptive, and also we're just trying to figure things out, googling a lot of rules, trying to work out how things interact. Um, at the end of the fight, they were left pretty hurt. I think on average they had taken about 5 to 8 points of damage. Some of them took more, some of them took less. So we looked up how resting works, and it seems to be the full 8-hour sleep situation that 5th edition has, except instead of fully healing, it's level times con modifier. And some of these guys have a 1 con modifier, which means a long rest to them is 1 point of healing, um, which would mean they would have to take like a week off to fully heal. So I'm not sure if there's something I'm missing, but it almost seems like they're supposed to get most of their healing from items like potions or spells. They don't have a dedicated healer in the group, so I'm going to assume that it's items or maybe going and buying healing from like a cleric, which is interesting. That's very different from how 5th edition works, as I'm sure everyone is aware. So that's something I'll have to consider. I might make it because we have 1 extra player in the party. Whenever the adventure gives out a potion, I might make it 2. But I'm probably going to watch some guides first and understand how healing is supposed to work, because it seems like it's resting can heal, but it's not the point of resting, which is interesting. But it has freaked the players out a little bit. So they've killed these rats in the first room, and they're now a little too scared to keep going. So I'll have to figure this out, have a talk with them, and sort of explain how healing is like expected to work. And yeah, that's kind of how the first session went. I'm happy with the system. Pathfinder definitely seems more up my alley than 5th edition was. 5th edition's a little too simple for me, especially with the way I run. I've always been a little harsh, shall we say, a little more mean than 5th edition lets the players account for. Whereas Pathfinder gives them so many options and so much customization and ways of interacting that I think they'll be able to handle my DMing style better in Pathfinder than they can in 5th edition, because they'll have more responses to it, if that makes sense. Yeah, really happy, really excited to carry on going. The next thing they'll be interacting with is the climb down the little slope, and then the spider, and hopefully we can pick up the pace a little bit as people get more used to how they use their characters and how things work. Yeah, super excited. I think I might do one of these little campaign progress videos as I learn the system. So in 2 weeks, when I do the next session, I'll do another like session 2, my thoughts, any new challenges that I came across, any interesting events that happened or circumstances we came across in our little adventure. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you found any kind of use with this video or liked it, then feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's a very young, fresh channel with a small little population, so any support is extremely useful, especially when the channel is this small.
and I have a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. I'm going to be releasing a nice big adventure, essentially, in video form, where I'm going to give you like an entire plug and play adventure for free. Um, that'll be coming soon once I finish editing it, which is taking a while. But yeah, thanks so much for stopping by and watching this video. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye.